Peanut.
Get it together, loses it immediately.
You're alive.
Hey y'all, welcome back to DM Chats. My name is Suzy. I play Ophelia on Fridays and Brigitte every other Saturday in our River of Churicel and Tales from Cyril game. Tonight we're going to continue our talk on the Curse of Strahd module.
Excuse me, sorry.
That was gorgeous. Super sexy. I hope everyone heard that. So yeah, we're gonna continue our talk. So when we last left our heroes, aka you guys, we were at the village of Barovia, and I sort of gave you guys the overview of what can actually happen in the village of Barovia. So, once your players are ready to move on, ideally the next place they need to go is to the what's known as the Surpool encampment, where they get their first encounter with relatively friendly Vistani and the very sort of enigmatic Madame Ava. Madame Ava is the one who will give the characters their reading for what's known as the Fortune of Ravenloft. This particular section ideally works best if you already have the Tarokka deck, which was specifically made for this module. If you don't have this deck, you can use a set of playing cards. It's a little bit more complicated, but it is doable. So, yeah. Personally, what we did in our game, I think we got to do this, I can't remember, it's been a year now, is when you have your characters go in for the reading, have everybody, if they're present, shuffle the deck. It sort of gives everybody a little bit more sort of feel into the deck, and if you're slightly superstitious, like I am, I always feel that when you shuffle a deck of cards, you sort of put a little bit of yourself into those cards, and sort of like helps you to get whatever reading you want. The Tarokka cards, you can consider them to be like tarot cards. They are not tarot cards. They are specifically playing cards, because there is a game that you can play with them. So they're not just for fortune telling in the game, but I sort of treat them like tarot cards. Now, technically with each card, there is two meanings to the card in the reading. And there's also a high deck and a sort of, and like the regular deck. So the high deck will have certain, what's known as like major arcana. So these cards will not have, if you can see them on the screen, they will not have any numbers on them, like the regular deck does. Sorry if you can't see the cards very well, we're working on the adjustments. But you will need to separate these out in order to do the reading. Get back in there. From the high deck versus the regular deck, because it does make a difference. So, let's get to it. Your characters there's 5 things that you can discern from the reading itself. Location of the Tome of Strahd, which is basically like Strahd's diary. So it basically gives you all the information you need on his backstory, if they're interested, and how to defeat him. The next thing that they give you is the Holy Symbol of Ravenkind, which is a very powerful tool against Strahd. The next one is the Sun Sword, another powerful weapon against Strahd. The 4th thing that you're going to get is going to be Strahd's enemy. There are so many NPCs in this game that could potentially be Strahd's enemy. Also including Irina herself. So, number 4 is going to be Strahd's enemy, the person who's going to help you defeat Strahd. And then number 5 is going to be where Strahd is located in his castle, which we will get to in another episode. So, now this is probably going to be requiring me to do a lot of flipping through this book, so I apologize if there's pauses in between flipping a card and what I actually discern from the reading. So we're gonna find out. Don't you dare. Sorry, there's a cat off screen and she's looking at the table like she's gonna jump up here. So I apologize if there's a cat in the layout, in the camera. So the way that you do the reading is you have 1 card, 2, 3 from the regular deck, and then you have card number 4 and 5 from the high deck. You're probably seeing this reversed, but basically you need to lay it out like a cross. So I'll do it again, hopefully right this time. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, all right. So first one that we're gonna flip over is the missionary. I have no idea what symbol it is, so I usually look for the name. Missionary. Ba-ba-ba. Where are you? That is a 2. Nope. Hey, missionary. Each of the readings does also come with a nice little bit that you can read with this. So this one reads, I see a garden dusted with snow, watched over by a scarecrow with a sackcloth grin. Look not to the garden, but to the guardian. Meaning this particular treasure is going to be hidden inside one of the scarecrows in the garden of the Abbey of Saint Markovia. And then it gives you a chapter and an area to go along with that map. And we will cover the Abbey of Saint Markovia at a later date.
It's creepy.
It's very creepy.
Like everything in this module.
Alright, so 7 looks like of swords. That is the hooded one. Okay. I see a faceless god. He awaits you at the end of a long and winding road deep in the mountains. Ooh, we didn't get to go here for this one. This treasure is going to be located inside the head of the giant statue in the Amber Temple. The Amber Temple is like super hard. And we didn't get to go there. And we will cover the Amber Temple at a later date. So, and finally, our third treasure. The Transmuter. That is stars, number 1 of stars. Go to a place of dizzying heights where the stone itself is alive. Oh, that's awesome. The treasure lies in Castle Ravenloft's North Tower Peak. Man, that's going to be fun to try and get to. Okay, so now that we've got our basically 3 pieces of information, we have our Tome of Strahd, Holy Symbol of Ravenkind, and then the Sun Sword. Now we're going to move on to the high deck for Strahd's enemy. Oops, sorry. We have the Beast facing upright. All right. This one was really easy to find. This one says, a werewolf holds a secret hatred for your enemy. Use her hatred to your advantage. This refers to the werewolf, oh god, I can't pronounce her name, Zulika Tarnoscu. She will accompany the characters if they promise to avenge her mate, Emil, by killing the leader of the pack, Kirill. There's a ton of NPCs. Alright, and finally the last one. Executioner upright. Strahd's location. Where are you? Okay. I see a dark figure on a balcony looking down upon this tortured land with a twisted smile. So Strahd will face the characters at the overlook. Again, after you do the reading, make sure somebody takes notes or take a picture of the cards so you can go back and reference this later, because that is extremely helpful. Hey, Tiny Cat, didn't realize you were right there. If at any point something happens to your reading that sort of like screws everything up, the characters can either go back to Madame Ava to get their fortune reread, meaning, so let's say, for instance, that in this particular reading, your ally is killed for various and sundry reasons. Have them go back to Madame Ava, and they can get their cards, they can get their fortune reread, or if they have made friends with Esmeralda, which we will meet her later, she can also do a reading as well for the characters, provided she has her cards, which are stored in a special spot. So, we have our reading, and our characters are going on. So, the next village that they encounter is going to be the village of... not Arganvostholt. That's another day. The town of Vallaki. Vallaki is a very interesting town. A lot of the villagers that once lived in the village of Barovia have sort of fled from it and moved to Vallaki. Vallaki is sort of considered a safe haven against Strahd. The burgomaster in Vallaki has seen to it that there are defenses up. And the way that we played it is that when we got to Vallaki, if it was approaching nightfall, they would not let anyone else in or out of the village. They also have... Vallaki also holds several festivals, so when the characters get there, they should be seeing sort of emblems of the festival of, like, the wolf that just finished. The burgomaster of Vallaki, through his own sort of madness, is under the impression that the more festivals he holds will raise the people's happiness and will keep Strahd at bay. This is a lie. And, yeah, they should... sorry, the cats are meowing and it's very distracting because they're adorable. So yeah, that doesn't exactly work. It just sort of makes people more depressed because it's like, oh, we have to have another festival. This is stupid. Oh my god. There's also a section sort of just outside of Vallaki called the Old Bone Grinder's Mill. Or sorry, the Old Bone Grinder, which is a windmill. There is a couple of night hags that live there, and depending on your character's interactions in the actual village of Barovia, they could potentially go to the Old Bone Grinder. It is basically run by a coven of night hags. There's 3 of them, and they basically grind up the bones of children to make these things called dream pastries that they sell to people. And when you eat one, you're like in a trance for 4 hours, and you experience like the most awesome, wonderful dreams, and you have like these and you're like not in, and it transports you outside of Barovia, and you get to forget how depressing the actual country of Barovia is. However, when you come down from that high, you suffer some negative effects, which basically then leads a lot of people into basically like selling their children or giving their children to the night hags in exchange for more of these pastries. So you can have your characters go, if your characters are curious enough, and you have the encounter that happens in Barovia, in the village of Barovia, that is an option for them as well. They can go in and kill the night hags and rescue the children that are there, and take them with them to the village of Vallaki. So, getting back into Vallaki, Vallaki is one of the supposed safe havens that Irina and Ismark were trying to get to. The church in Vallaki was supposed to be a safe haven. However, when the characters get there, if they talk to the priest long enough, / don't make themselves, mistrustful of him, or if he doesn't suspect their evil doings, he will give them a quest to try and find the bones of the saint that was resting there, Saint Andral. The bones of Saint Andral basically allowed the spell Sanctuary to be cast over the church, which meant that none of the dead that were buried there could rise again, and it also prevented undead, celestials, fiends, fays from entering in the church and its grounds. And if the characters prove themselves to be of good nature to the priest there, he will give them the quest, and he will give them more information to try and find the bones of the missing saint. If they don't, there is a quest that happens there's an event that happens within 3 days, and it's Bad News Bears. There are a bunch of friendly NPCs as well here. They can encounter Rictavio, the traveling carnival master, who is secretly in disguise Rudolph Van Richten. Gasp! And he is there under the pretenses of he's a traveling showman and he's trying to set up his new circus. This is great, y'all. Y'all want to be in my show? If he is their ally, Rictavio will agree to travel with the group. Otherwise, he does not. No, it's not food times yet. He can help them out if he so chooses, and again, if they prove their worth to him. Next that they can meet are the Mardukov family. The Mardukov family is a group of were-ravens, and ultimately the whole family runs this place called the Wizard of the Wines, which is another spot further down. We'll get to that in another episode. The Mardukov family are were-ravens, so basically like werewolves, except they turn into giant ravens. Or not giant ravens, I don't know. We never got to that part. But they, depending on if the characters prove their worth, or if he trusts them enough, he can give them a side quest to go to the Wizard of the Wines and help out his family. Moving on to some of the more unpleasant NPCs, we have Baron Valakovich and his family. Baron Valakovich, again, through his own madness, has sort of come under the impression that if he holds more festivals, people will be happier, and that will break the curse of Strahd that's on their lands, and, everything's going to be fine and dandy. So he has a tendency to chant the phrase, all is well, or all will be well. Hi! Thanks for being in the shot. Knew you wanted to be on the stream, Tiny Cat. So, again, he's also the one who's sort of responsible for putting on the festivals as well. So he comes up with these crazy ideas. So the last one that the characters just missed was the Festival of the Wolf. So there's a lot of, wolf meat, wolf heads, hanging around the village. So as the characters are getting into Vallaki, they should be setting up for the next festival, which is called the Festival of the Sun. The Baron's wife, Baroness Lydia, she is sort of going along with this and sort of agreeing with her husband to just be like, yes, let's do all these things and everything's going to be perfectly fine. The Baron also does have a son. His name is Victor. Victor is suffering from a madness of his own. So depending on if your characters have a wizard in the party or not, we didn't. It was amazing. They can potentially recruit Victor to come help with them as well, but they need to do some prerequisite stuff for him before they can recruit him. Victor basically is trying to create a teleportation circle to teleport out of Barovia, which, if you remember from the last episode, isn't going to work because Strahd's curse is so strong that it prevents that once you're in Barovia, you're stuck, Holmes. So, the next unpleasant people that we get to meet is Lady Watcher. She lives in a house called Watcher House, and if anybody hates the Baron Valakovich more, it's Lady Watcher. She really wants to run the village herself because she's power hungry. She also has basically sucked up to Strahd in one of his alternate identities that he uses because, why the hell not? She also has 2 sons that don't really like her very much and much prefer to spend her money on drinking. And they are... You can encounter them during the day or night at the tavern. I know that in one group that they challenged the sons to a drinking contest. And because that group was, great fun, they had a higher constitution score, they drank them under the table. So, it is possible to do that. Lady Watcher, however, is, again, not exactly a pleasant person to be around. She has a cult that she's running out of her basement, which is great. And they are, again, huge supporters of Strahd. She also does have a daughter. Her name is Stella. And the characters can encounter her there. Stella is unfortunately mad due to some poor writing choices, which is basically they tried to marry Victor, the son of Baron Valakovich, and Stella, but then Victor apparently said some mean things and Stella's gone nuts. So feel free to rewrite that portion because, again, kind of lazy writing right there. So depending on how your characters want to run through Lady Watcher's house, if they even choose to, there's a bunch of interesting things that can happen there. So, moving on. Let's really quick backtrack just a bit to the bones of Saint Andral. Again, if the priest trust your players enough to give them this quest, it sort of is a bit of a fetch quest in a way. The characters are given the task to go find the bones of Saint Andral, which again are responsible for placing the sanctuary spell over the church and keeping it and its occupants and its dead safe. They'll have to talk to basically the caretaker of the grounds, a 16-year-old kid named, I forgot, and I don't want to flip back to that page. And then they get to talk to another kid around the village. His name is Yeska, because how could you forget the name Yeska? And then ultimately they go to the coffin maker's shop where they can retrieve the bones from him. The coffin maker shop is unfortunately a vampire nest, so there's 6 vampires that are going to be waiting for them as well. If you can get the drop on them like we did, and drop basically a light grenade inside that room, that was great fun. Yeah. First we were like, let's burn the house down. And our DM was like, are you sure about that? We were like, yeah, let's just burn it down. It's fine. And she was like, are you sure? We did not burn it down. So yeah. There is also a Vistani camp just outside of Vallaki. It's less than like an hour's walk if they want to walk there. There's also another potential ally there. Actually, 2 potential allies there. There is Casimir Velikov, who is a Dusk Elf. You will not find references to Dusk Elves anywhere else in any of the D&D sort of module things. They are only mentioned thus far in Curse of Strahd from what I can find. Dusk Elves are basically like normal elves, except their skin, I think, is a slightly darker color. That's the main difference that I can find. The Vistanis that are here at this particular encampment actually keep watch over the Dusk Elves per Strahd's orders. There is some backstory there, which I'm not about to give away, because you gotta play the game and read it. And there also is a again, there's another ally you can get there as well. Her name is Arabelle. She's like 7 and super smart and amazing. And if you rescue her from potentially drowning, You can return her to her father, and he will eventually let you guys rifle through their treasure wagons. Good stuff. All right. So special events. Saint Andral's Feast. That's the big event. So if your characters are not trusted by the priest, he will not give them the quest to find the bones of Saint Andral. If that happens, the Feast of Saint Andral is basically that Strahd comes into town. His 6 vampire spawn rise from the Coffin Maker's house, and they do a bunch of havoc, kill the priest, leaving the town basically defenseless at that point from any further undead attacks. And if your characters are there, they can witness Strahd murdering the priest, or not, if they're not there. But then there's mayhem and panic that sort of ensues after that. The villagers do go and burn down the burgomaster's house. It's up to you on whether or not the Valakovich family survives or not. And if that happens, Lady Watcher will then take control of the town. And again, it's sort of up to you on how you want to RP what happens there. The characters can also sort of be befriended by Lady Watcher. She has a lackey, his name is Ernst, and he can sort of act as an intermediary to try and... Because if she feels that the character's motives align with hers, then she will send them basically a note to try and get them to come to her side. We discussed the old Bone Grinder. 3 Night Hags. They're so great. After that, we're going to move on to Arganvostholt. Arganvostholt is an old fortress that actually predates Strahd. Strahd's pretty freaking old. He's like 400 and something years old. And the Arganvostholt predates him, which is pretty fascinating. Arganvostholt was basically the headquarters for a group of knights that were in service to a silver dragon, Arganvost. And basically their whole goal was to wipe out the Amber Temple. Again, we'll get to that in a later video. The village, Jesus. There's a bunch of things that the characters can run through. There's giant spiders, there's revenants, which are not exactly the most fun thing in the world to run up against. Phantom warriors. There's at least 3 good levels of this. And ultimately, which takes you up to, should they survive all of that, they may get to meet Vladimir Horngard. Like everything else in the country of Barovia, Vladimir Horngard is obsessed with seeing Strahd destroyed. So his whole goal, he's like so mad that Strahd killed Arganvost, the head of the knights, that basically his whole thing is to like, no, Strahd will live and suffer while he lives. You can have the characters interact with Sir Godfrey, which is Vladimir's like right-hand man. And Sir Godfrey sort of can tell the characters, or at least hint to the characters, that that Vladimir is sort of out of his mind. And there's only really one thing that will restore him, which is... It's like a greater restoration spell, basically. What? That was just how you play. No, it's in the book.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's in the book. Somewhere. I just can't find it right now because, whatever. But yeah, no, a greater restoration spell will get him back into his right mindset. And that's actually a great, powerful ally, because our dumbasses ran straight into Strahd with, 20-something revenants in tow. We're like, hey, Strahd, we're here to fight! It was great. It was great. We plowed over that. It was fun. So, the other way to sort of get the keep back into its rightful place is getting the skull of Arganvostholt from Castle Ravenloft. That skull is huge. It weighs 250 pounds. So good luck getting it out the front door, because I'm pretty sure somebody's going to notice. There are also special events that can happen while you're at Arganvostholt, but that also can serve as a great sort of resting point for the characters that's not in a town. Because remember, Strahd has spies everywhere. Strahd is, again, not the villain that sits back in his castle and goes, oh yes, the adventurers will come to me at some point. Strahd is, again, very active. Strahd can take the form of a bat or a wolf or even, hell, mist. So if the characters are staying in town, he could potentially have a spy come in and check in on them and sort of just see how things are going, overhear conversations. Because as we all know, players are not quiet. Unless they're actually specifically saying, unless the DM goes, are you being quiet about this? Then players are usually like, nah, we're talking out loud about this. Let's talk out loud at this tavern in broad daylight about how we're going to murder that PC over there. Or NPC over there. That's fine, right? So there are a couple events that can happen out at Arganvostholt. If your characters have not already met Esmeralda, there is a way that she can be... There are 2 ways that she can be met here. Or actually, no, sorry, 1 way, which is having a Vistani specifically try and hunt her down for horse theft. The other option, which sort of adds to the gothic horrorness of this, is that a Vistani can come up with a cart, basically drop the cart and leave, and you can see that on the front of the cart is engraved with one of the characters' names, and if they open it up, it's a swarm of bats! Merle, it's me! And he stabbed me. Thor Ragnarok. Alright. How are we at time-wise?
A little over half an hour.
Half an hour? Alright, cool. I think that's a good spot to leave it here, because I don't want to blaze through the whole book, like I want to do. So we're gonna call it here for now. Our next game will be Friday at 8 p.m. for River of Turisel. And then join us back here next week for another DM chat with Andy, I believe? Yes, with Andy. And then that following Friday is another River of Turisel, and Saturday is Tales from Zero. Yay! So, hopefully see you guys on Friday, and you can watch me just calmly die. It'll be great fun. So, anyways, have a good evening, Internet. See you tomorrow, or Friday.